What is going on, everybody? I'm gonna sing you a song because Yanko, my boy, supposed to be my homie, just goes to me, "You look stiff and kind of sickly." I'm like, nah, nah, nah. No, no, no. This is a for no particular reason show, but we all know that what we think we manifest. And so I am in the most joyful, healthy, loving spirits. What about you, Yanko?
I'm kind of the same. I'm excited that it's Friday. Yeah, so let's.
We're already losing Yanko. Evidently, they're playing around in his office, and this might be a solo conversation today if he keeps breaking up on me. Can you hear me, Yanko?
Hopefully not.
I can hear
Can you
you,
hear?
and I didn't realize that your name is Kerri. Anyway,
Let's
guys,
see what
that
I
is
can do.
just the way it goes with technical stuff. It's just kind of the way it rolls. So I am coming on. One, if any of you are out there watching, we would love to hear from you and get your thoughts on really whatever it is you're inspired to talk about. And secondly, I want to, it's so interesting that you were saying I'm stiff and sickly because I just got an unexpected call from a beautiful friend of mine who was talking about their journey in wellness, and I shared with them it's awesome to change your diet, it's awesome to incorporate weights, it's awesome to do all these things, but if you don't change your mindset, then eventually you won't experience the fruits of your labor because what you believe in here manifests externally.
That's right. Yeah, and a lot of the times, not only that, but your body reflects of what's inside. Anytime, in the easier example of that, it's when you get angry at somebody, you unconsciously frown like that. Your body express whatever it's going on in inside.
Yep.
So yeah.
Yep. Exactly. So don't mind me. I am just attempting to be a tad bit more technically savvy today, guys, which is always at
Whoop,
best
whoop.
up for question. Yanko will attest. I be going off about tech with him.
But
All
that's all
right.
right though. You're doing an amazing job. Like what I love about it is that you're persistent and you don't give up. A lot of people that I know, as soon as like maybe at the first hurdle or the second, they'd be like, okay, this is it. This isn't for me, and they'll just like throw their hands up and that'll be it.
Yeah. Well, you know what's interesting is that I I actually got the Bright Side Chronicles on a podcast platform last night, which is why I was stiff this morning, mind you, because I'm like you, Yanko. I have to be in a zone. If I don't feel it, I'm not doing it because there's no point in me exerting forced energy. It's not going to work out the way I like. I'm just going to feel some type of way. But when I feel empowered and inspired to do something, I can go like the Energizer Bunny. So I was up until 1 last night, which is way past my bedtime because I love my beauty sleep. And I was like, oh wow. So I sent Nan a picture knowing he was slumped that we were on uh iPod stands. And I'm like, wow, like if you had told me in the morning that at 1 at night I would have achieved that. Not that I would have said I wouldn't, because I know that I'm pretty resilient and when I'm inspired, I can do all things. Uh but I wouldn't have given it a second thought. I'd have been like, oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah. But this is also inspiring because like it's energy is moving around and getting you in the zone and you know
Yeah. Well, I mean, and I think that's the thing. You know, I don't know. I think my ability to know my ability has come from just being tenacious, being resilient, and being unwilling to quit when I want to achieve something.
That's right. Yeah.
That doesn't mean I don't get kicked in the teeth a lot. Like, I mean, earlier this week, guys, in full transparency, like I was totally leaving Yanko swearing messages. And it's so funny because Nana was talking about it yesterday. Like, I am that person who you will see at the gym swearing at gym equipment. I'll do my last rep, but trust and believe that gym equipment is going to hear what I feel about the fact that it hurt or was really hard to. Yeah, I just think it's amazing.
Well, sometimes you gotta go with what it feels all right in that moment. Like no judgment or anything. Um,
Yeah. Well,
you know, go ahead.
let's I kind of want to go back to this idea of our subconscious. Obviously, you're a hypnotist, so you know more than some or many around how our mind, our idea, plays an intricate role in how we view external circumstances. So, how do you address limitations within your own subconscious, Yanko?
Well, first of all, I have to discover the limitation. So I have to be observant of behaviors or limits or beliefs. Like if something comes out, I have to question it, not just take it as is, because the the job of the mind is to keep you supported and to keep giving you information that you need. Um, but it's not always the information that it's useful at that very moment, or it could be a pattern that it's limiting or anything in between. So the first step is to be able to recognize when thoughts are coming up or surfacing in the mind, and are they really true, to expect what's coming up, not just take it as something that it's um, already being confirmed.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the times things that come out things that served us in the past might not serve us in this very moment, or there might not be true or not applicable. But
So,
it's
uh,
like it's like if I have, yeah, go ahead.
for our listening audience, like, can you give me an example? So, I want this to be like, give an example of something that may have come up for you. I don't know, more recently, that in the past you might have needed to examine, but now you're kind of like, oh, it's just a thought, and it's, you know what I mean? Something you flushed out.
Right. Let me see if I can think of something, because like I don't make a list of those things, and like I don't, if they come up, I address them in the moment and then let it go or change it. So this morning when I was dropping my son at school, I waved him goodbye and he walked in, but there was this other kid that came up and it was sitting in the door and he wasn't really happy because the teacher was like bringing him in, and he was looking at his mom's car, and kind of looking in, you know, to her, towards her sadly. And this expectation came in my mind that, like, oh, maybe he's not afraid to go and be by himself because his parents are too, like, nurturing for him or whatever. But then I caught that in that moment and I said, well, I don't know, maybe there's something else going on in his mind. Like I can't make a conclusion based on whatever it's happening, just because like that applied for other scenarios where kids were kind of looking afraid or anything. And I didn't stop at that conclusion, and I didn't stop and said, "All right, this is what it is." It could have been, 100 different things. It could have been, maybe anxious because he didn't want to go. He didn't like somebody in the school, or there could have been like different things, like 100 different things. So that was one thing that kind of stopped me there, and I've seen that thought coming up in my mind, and examined it, and I didn't made a conclusion. I didn't said, okay, this is what it is, and just got to that point. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna go in and jump in with my own example because it's one that comes up for me a lot, which would be um competition. I was brought up with this
Mm,
idea that I was in constant competition with others. And so even now in like speaking engagements or whatever, at times I'll have a thought that's like, "Oh, I need to," but to your point, I've already like examined that belief. I've established to the best of my ability where I'm at because I do believe I'm constantly peeling back the layers, and I can't speak to what I still need to release or heal from. I don't know because I am in this moment. But what I do know is I'm aware of that thought and I just laugh about it. And I think about two things that come up for me often, and this goes to the listening audience and to you, Yanko, is one, I believe from all of my studies around spiritual texts, scientific texts, quantum physics that, measures energy, that when we talk about judgment, the last judgment in a lot of these great books that are worshiped is the last time we judge. Our superpower is in removing judgment, is in bearing witness to the experience we're having without labeling it or making an assumption about what that is. That's where I stay in alignment. It's where I stay peaceful. But that's not to say I don't have thoughts, because I do, uh I go to a gym with amazing, incredible women who put in so much work, right? They're gorgeous. I could have a thought, wow, that person is so beautiful. I'm not as beautiful as them. And then I'm just like, that's ridiculous. It's just a narrative that came up from belief systems that were once very much seeped into my psyche, that I was very attached to, that I believed to be true. But then I just let it go. And the other thing I always think about is, and this is something I carry with me every day, and this is how I shift from fear-based thinking to joy instantly, is I think about uh don't be afraid of the illusionary thought, because all it is an opportunity to choose again. And what I mean by that is I simply recognize the thought, recognize that it's a separation from love. And that's how I determine anything, guys. Like the minute I think about something and it does not feel loving, I know that it's not truth, because we exist in an energetic like creation of love. So the minute it's unloving, I'm like, well, that's not true. That doesn't serve me. Choose again. And that's how I come to experience externally such a loving world, because I choose again when I recognize something coming up. And the other thing is if there's like, if I have like an emotion that comes up with that thought, then I honor the emotion. I ask, what is it you need to teach me? Right. And then what do I need to let go? What belief am I still carrying that no longer serves me, so that I can be released of this um energy that feels icky for me? And I know that people are like, oh, you need to have emotions. Yes, we do. But I would rather sit in joyful emotions than icky ones. So, what's causing me to feel icky? And then what do I need to release so that I can come back to a peace, to alignment, to love? Because I believe that that is our natural state of being, is loving.
right. And you're right about that. In that particular one with the competition comes out a lot with people, and he came out with me at the beginning of when I was starting off to um, work on my new business. Because I was taught and brought with that emotion of, or not emotion, but that mindset of competition, that you have to be, you have to fight to survive, and there's not enough, and there's lack and other things like that. And um, that it's something that comes up now. It doesn't come up as often like it's coming up for you, um, but you pointed out really good to everyone that when you go through something, it doesn't mean it's not going to come back. It's going to come up again and again, but the way you look at it, it's going to be a different way, or different. You're going to have a different perspective for it. You're not going to look at it the same way you've seen it the first time around. Now you're going to look at it as something else.
Yep.
And that's just how it is with everything, not only with emotions or thoughts, but every moment it's different from the previous moment. So you can't have the same thing repeat itself. Even so it might look like it's repeating or it's going on repeat, it's not. It's totally different. But because your mind it's expecting to see that, you might recognize it by similarities. And there is a lot of those things out there now, coming out on a lot on the internet a lot, where they have those visual illusions where you look at something, and then 2 seconds later they tell you, well, maybe focus on that. And when you focus your perception, instead of seeing a class, it come up as a person or something else. Depends on how your perspective changes, but it's the same thing. It's not, it's identical. It doesn't change. Your perspective changes, or the way you look at things.
Yeah.
And other examples I can give that people might relate to is, in dark, you look at on the street as a rope, and you might mistake it for a snake. But when you get up close, it might just be a rope. So your mind will try to figure things out. Same as looking at darkness. If you're really in dark spot or in a room and you're looking, then your mind might start showing you different clouds that look like something, or different things, almost trying to picture something out of the darkness or make sense of whatever it's happening, while your eyes are adjusting to um, your environment. So it doesn't mean that that's there. It might look like something, but it doesn't, because again, um, that's just how it is. There's so many examples of that.
Well, it's
Um,
limitless. And I mean, I think that
right.
that's ultimately what my hope for people to understand is that idea that we are limitless, that we have the opportunity to shift our experience right now. And that's where, to your point, this present moment is all we have. It's all
Mm,
we have. And so often I just see people sitting in this angst, in this suffering, because that's all they know. But the reality is even like the smallest thing, like feeling into your heart, has the opportunity to shift your perspective from one of like angst and lack and fear-based thinking to joyful thinking. And it really just comes from one, awareness that you feel icky, right? Like you don't even have to know all the thoughts, guys. Like this is so important for people to hear. When I started this work, and I can't speak for Yanko, but when I started this work, I was not aware that my thoughts were limiting. I didn't have any concept of the power of my mind. The one thing I did fundamentally know is I did not like how I felt. And so, going back to what Yanko said earlier about the fact that I stick to something, the thing about me is I was going to be focused on achieving the result of feeling good. That was it. And even if it meant decades and decades and decades figuring that out, I was going to do it, and I did. So I encourage you, even if you don't understand what those beliefs, those thoughts are right now, if you feel icky, what's one thing in this right now moment that you can do that's going to shift you out of feeling that icky? Is it smelling a rose? Is it going for a walk? Is it hugging your 2-year-old kid? Is it calling a friend who affirms you? Is it feeling into your heart and just listening to the beating of it? Whatever it is, the minute you choose to do that, you've shifted out of that experience of ick into something that feels better. And the more you do that over the course of your moments, the more your feeling good in here starts to show itself externally. And that's our superpower.
Right. Because both are connected. When and I use that a lot when I work with people. I tell them when the mind it's when the mind it's relaxed, the body it's relaxed, and when the body it's relaxed, the mind it's relaxed. Because the same thing, if you're inside, the body shows it without you knowing. So when you're like joyful inside and everything, you don't have to do anything outside. The body just shows it, and people are like, wow, this person, it's radiating with something. I want to have some of that. Like, I don't know what's going on.
Well, it's interesting because, Nana and I were talking about this yesterday, because we attract what we feel, right? And Nana is
Mm,
a prime example of somebody who really exists in just a consistent, joyful state. It's more likely for you to experience him super happy and jovial than to feel down or anxiety ridden. And so as a result, he has attracted a lot of people because that is appealing to our senses, even if we don't know why.
right.
Right? We can't logically put it into words. We're like, oh, I want to be around that person. But the way in which we experience that is to feel that way internally for ourselves first.
Right. And I wanted to add something to what you were saying, because I wanted to add that earlier on. A lot of the times, a lot of the deeper things that are in our psyche, um, they might not be, they might not be when they come up like emotions. They might not be. You might not be consciously aware of why they're coming up, or what is the cause, because not everything is accessible to the conscious mind, which will be in the whole being of you. And so sometimes if you're unloading something that come up, you're basically feeling like you're having a joyful moment or you want to dance. And when that happens, when that happens to me, I'll give myself as an example. First thing that'll come up is like, why am I already feeling that? Like, what's the cause of that, and why is it happening? And if it's something unusual because it's not happened very often, I might start making assumptions of like, oh, maybe because of this, or maybe because of this other thing, instead of just being in the moment with whatever is, not like making any assumptions, because you're not aware on conscious level of like, why is this coming up? Maybe, you know going back, but again, those are assumptions and maybes. Like, you can take it as 100%. But let's say maybe you wanted to dance on one point of your life, and at that moment you felt like this is silly, and people will laugh at you or whatever, and you didn't do it. you know you know what that just reminded me of?
Like,
Jim
ah,
Carrey did that. Jim Carrey did that on the on one of the shows where he like flipped his hands like that, and I did that thing.
well,
but that's but
again,
that's but that's how life is, though. That's exactly how it is. If you have to describe it to somebody, or if I have to describe it to somebody, that's what I'll do. And that's why I think Jim Carrey did it when they were interviewing him.
yeah, I mean, the Like, again, I was just, the more I learn about myself, and I don't want to subscribe to the fact that I'm all knowing, because in any given day, I'm a whole hot mess express. But the more I learn about myself, the more I truly believe our superpower lies in the spontaneity of this present moment. It's not this expectation of how Yanko and I are going to convey whatever it is we're meant to convey to you. It's not how I'm going to show up as soon as this show's over for the person I'm meant to meet. Whatever the case is, right? Like, the reality is when we just allow ourselves to be present in this moment, which means I'm intent on my mind just being here, feeling into my body, feeling into the Yanko, I'll be guided. Like, I don't need to. I think about this. I'm a quote person. In fact, for anybody who's watching visually, this is just a little glimpse of the things that I write. And it's so funny because this is what I was just gonna say. A healed mind does not plan. And that's what I mean by that, is we're just simply a full expression of who we are in this moment without needing to know what that has to look like, how it's going to unfold, where our safety lies. And so the more I understand that, the more when I start to plan things, I can be like, oh, I don't need to do anything. And I can trust that things are going to be what they need to be. And I let it go.
And that works out. I-
Beautifully.
I've I've tested it, and that's what I was gonna say. Don't take our word for it. Like, challenge anything,
Thank you
Get
for
get the
that.
experience. Yeah, get the experience. Um, like like I'm gonna circle back to limited beliefs. If there's a limited belief, challenge it, or any kind of belief. Like, you know challenge it, and see if is that really true, or what is this coming from, or why, or and test it out you know
Yeah.
so yeah, but I love that. I love that. And and that's a good reminder too. When you were describing it, I was thinking of like the water molecules and how they're shifting, and water flows or not flowing, or going up or down, or hitting rocks when it's moving, and all that. Each individual thing, it's part of the water or the flow. um, but it doesn't think itself as something individual that's separate from the whole creation. And that's where a lot of the stuff comes up for people too, because we're in the world of duality and separation, and we feel like this small little me that it's trying to figure things out, or survive, or do different things. And once you get on that flow like the water, and you understand that you're one with everything, and you're not your separate being, then things start to fall apart, start to come apart, come together, and thing happens. So, you
Do you
know,
think I was listening to that analogy? Water's a beautiful representation of oneness, right? Because even if you break it, even if you freeze water, right?
mm,
Break the water apart, put it in separate places, the minute that it comes together, it joins once again as one. But I think for me, I had to fall apart to understand that we were one. And what I mean is, there has to be, to what you were saying earlier about beliefs and questioning them, there has to be the process of dissolving those beliefs that kept you from feeling like you were separate, right? And that can feel really uncomfortable.
yeah, and that's the whole point of it. You have to have that separation to get the understanding or have the experience. You have to have like love and hate, in white and black, and um, all the opposites, to be able to have that feeling of separation, to experience both sides. They're the same thing, but they're just viewed from a different point. It's like
Well,
you take in a coin and you flip it, and it's the same thing in both sides. Go ahead.
yeah, it's interesting. It's like it's just varying degrees, right? There's no extreme hate. There's levels of hate. Just like
Mm,
there's no extreme sadness. There's levels of sadness, and there's always, opposites, right? And
mm,
so it's as you start to like first become aware, right? Because awareness, you can't change if you're not aware that there's something that you want to change or let go of. But then as you start to examine those things, it may feel uncomfortable because you're challenging everything that you've known. But what's happening is you're shifting the degree from one to the other, and it's like it's slow over time, and then hopefully you get to a place where you're not pendulum shifting from fear to love to fear to love, and you're able to bring it in, so it's kind of like the two, even whatever it is, the measuring things for justice, where you're more balanced, you're able to stay more in that peaceful state of mind rather than swinging back and forth. And it just takes constant like recognition of where you're at and letting it go.
well, you're retraining your mind, because your mind, it's being trained in different patterns and different, beliefs or whatever. And like we were saying earlier, they're gonna keep coming up. The thing is that when they come out, you have a different perspective on them. Now you're not seeing it as this like a super painful thing, or super loving thing. You're just seeing it as what is, and that's where the illusion disappears, because your mind likes to create those things for you,
Yeah.
to show you those different perspectives. So in reality, there isn't any of that, but it's meant so that you can experience both ends of the same rope, or both side of the coin. um, and you can go as far as you feel like, but there's always going to be that push to the other side, which is why, in my opinion, nobody can get stuck on the one side or the other side. Or I know people that overgeneralize, that they keep saying, this always happens to me, it's always happens to me, or
I'm
whatever.
gonna leave you for 1 second because my daughter's calling.
Okay. Yeah. So when that happens to somebody, and if you're that kind of person that overgeneralizes things, you can um, recognize it and shift your focus on something else, instead of keep refocusing that this is happening, or this is happening to me, or whatever that is. And I tell people that if something it's happening, just be present with whatever it's happening. Just let it
And
happen.
so I'm gonna jump in for my
Mhm.
listening audience, our listening audience, and be very present because I need to leave and go get my daughter from school. So, with all of that being said, I find the irony here because we were thinking I was going to be the one left standing, and I think it might be you, Yankos.
Well, that's all right. I'm gonna talk a little bit more about whatever comes to mind, and if nothing comes to mind, I'm gonna cut it short, and I'm gonna thank our audience. But thank you for showing up. Like, again, you can't fight whatever happens in the world. If this was somebody else, they could have made an assumption and come up and say, "Oh, I made a commitment, this and that, and this and that." You can't fight it. If something comes up, it comes up.
Yep,
So
exactly.
you
So
you go with
I
the flow.
I love you all immensely. I look very much forward to being here with you next week, and I want to leave you with this. Um our greatest gift is ourselves, like our unique individual selves. So I encourage you to give yourself permission to honor you in whatever way that feels like, and know that that's enough, because you are enough. I'm honored that I have this time and space with Yanko, and I will see you all next week. Bye, guys.
Bye, Kerri. So, to what we were talking about, assumptions and seeing different sides of the same coin. When you're making an assumption about something, it's really your perception of like how far you can take things, or can you take it any farther. And a lot of the times you think, or you might be thinking that you're not liking a situation, or you're not liking an experience and the way it's unfolding, and there might be a position where you think that you might want to change things, or wanting to change the experience, but it is something that it's happening, and the more you fight it, um, the more uncomfortable you're going to feel about it. So usually I tell people, you can take any experience to the extreme you want to take it. You can go as far as you want to go with an experience that it's happening, or you might be thinking that it's happening to you, in and and push the limit until you get to the point where you're like, okay, this is enough. The way I can see it, or describe it from personal experience, is like going to a dance party or a club, and some of the people might stay up until the club closes, or some people might even stay up until the morning and go to an after party if the club continues to work. But then there's different people that have a point when they say, all right, this is enough for me, I gotta go and be kind of in peace. So that's usually how it is with any kind of experience that might be unfolding for somebody. When that experience is unfolding, it's usually you pushing yourself to the extreme to see like what comes off that experience, and what you can learn or not learn, or you know experience in that very moment. So when something happens, you just go with the flow without any pre-assumptions or anything that might pop up into your mind. And with that, I'm gonna ask if there is anything else, or if anybody has any comments, or if anybody wants to ask any questions. I'm gonna look at the chat. Um, just kind of wait to see what it comes up that I can talk about, that I might get inspired to talk about. So I'm gonna scratch the surface back. I'm gonna circle back to the emotions. Now we're in a times when everyone has different kind of emotions coming up onto their psyche, and some might feel good and some might not feel good, and some might feel semi kind of strange. And it's okay if you don't know consciously why those emotions are coming up, or are happening in that very moment. If you allow that to happen and just observe it without judgment, or without trying to figure out why that it's coming up, it'll go away faster than if you're trying to um, consciously understand why that emotion it's coming up and why it's happening. Because I see people having different emotions happening in different times during the day or night, and not with no particular reason for that to happen. And I also see it with some of the clients that I work with that have that happen to them. And when I ask how can I help, they say, well, I'm having this kind of emotions that are coming out, and I don't know, this is kind of weird. I don't know why they're coming up. They're coming up on different times. They're coming up at different places. And I just want to know, but sometimes it's not meant for you to understand it on a conscious level because it's happening in a different level. And sometimes when I work with people, I might have people that or clients that'll say, I know I have this issue or whatever, or trauma that I went through, but I don't want to. I don't want to re-experience it. Like I don't want to, like get to it back into my conscious mind and re-experience it consciously because they already have done once and it's been really stressful for them. So in a way that could be processed on a deeper level without being brought up to the conscious. um, and so there is still like balance happening, or emotions getting re-experienced but not on a conscious level, on a deeper level. So that might be what's happening to some people that have emotions that are happening with no reason, without anything that connects to what's happening in that very moment when they're experiencing that emotion, in not knowing consciously why it's happening. That might be overwhelming, or might raise some questions of like, why is this happening? Because like you might be just driving your car and all of a sudden you're feeling like you want to cry for no particular reason. There weren't any thoughts, you weren't thinking of somebody that you're missing or anything. There's no reason for that emotion to be there and that specific time, or anything that it's known to you in conscious level. Like usually when you're experiencing different things, you can connect it to your surrounding or what's happening, and say, well, I'm feeling angry because so and so it's making me angry, and connect it to your environment or whatever it's happening. But when the other ones are happening, they're more in a deeper level, they're not on a conscious level. And because you don't need to re-experience that on a conscious level, then all you have to do is be in the emotion and let it pass through. That's pretty much it. So if that's helpful to anyone, I'd like to say that if you have any questions or anything that comes to mind, to shoot me an email or get in touch with me on social media or message or whatever. Um, and I want to open a little side note that I'm not psychotherapist, not a doctor. I don't cure people. I don't do any kind of psychotherapy. I don't none of that stuff. I'm just sharing my experience with audience, and that's pretty much it. So, with that being said, we're getting close to an hour. I'm not getting any kind of inspiration to talk about anything else. So, with that, I'm gonna end the stream and wish you all the best. And thank you all for sticking around and vibing with me and Kerri. Um, and please like, share, subscribe, all that wonderful stuff. Send it out there. Really help us in the algorithm to connect us with the right people that vibe with the information that we're putting out there. And have a wonderful weekend. And have fun. Bye.